Yeah, it was kind of strange. Um, you arrive in Vietnam on this civilian airliner with stewardesses, and they're giving you snacks and stuff, and then they open up the doors, and it's like going into a blast furnace. The humidity's, I don't know, 100% humidity, and the temperature is 100 and something, and you get shoveled over to an area where you are assigned to a bunk and stuff in a holding area. And the first night there, you know, me and all the other guys are laying in our bunks, and you hear this artillery going off in the distance, and you have no idea if it's our artillery shooting out, or guys shooting in at you, and then you hear machine gun fire up. So you kind of start thinking, wow, this is interesting. My name is Leo Lisovskis, and my dad was Ludwig, and my mom was Jadwiga. They're both Latvian, and I was born in Germany in a refugee camp after the Second World War, and they were escaping the Soviet onslaught and takeover of those little countries up in Northern Europe. We came in 1950, I believe. I was 3 years old. We were sponsored over by some farmers in Nebraska. My parents scraped up enough money to move to Minnesota, and that was in, I believe, 1955. And my dad got a job right away in a foundry, and I started on my second year of first grade because I didn't know how to speak English. I went to St. Luke's grade school, and then on to St. Paul Central. After graduating at Central, I got a job with the post office for a short period of time. The draft was really kind of kicking off, and I did get a draft notice. And I thought to myself, well, if I let them draft me, I'll probably be an infantryman, be a grunt. And so I requested aviation school, thinking you're going to be flying and you could have a nice bed to come home to, and didn't realize that Vietnam was going to be known as the helicopter war. I'm not totally sure what my dad thought about me entering the service. I know he was proud that I did, and we spent the better part of the Second World War fighting against the Red Army on the Russian front. So he knew what going to war was like. So that idea didn't really probably thrill him. On the other hand, there's the communists taking over this little country, and that probably made it a little more palatable. I know just before I left, the Latvian community in St. Paul had a party, a going away party, and most of the guys my dad's age had been on the Russian front, and it was like a patriotic thing to do. We were all immigrants, and you just had to do it. It was the right thing to do. I went to Vietnam and flew for the first year, approximately first year. I flew in gunships, in a helicopter gunship, as a crew chief and door gunner. Then after that, I was platoon sergeant again of the gunship platoon, but we had gotten Cobras, and that was okay. But I didn't really get to fly much, so I volunteered to fly in the Slick platoon, which is a lift transported troops and material and stuff to different places, picked up people. So I was the platoon sergeant of the lift platoon, and flew a few missions with scouts, which is a little crazy. Well, with scouts, you were more or less considered bait. You'd fly slow and low, like at treetop level or just below treetop level, and doing slow circles for the most part, looking for any signs of the enemy, footprints, bunker entrances, things like that. And you had gunships above you, and if you saw something, you would quick drop a smoke grenade to mark the position. And if there was someone down there, you would, fire with your M60 after dropping the smoke grenade, and then they'd just get out of there. And the gunships would roll in and put down rocket and machine gun fire and 40 millimeter grenade fire. Well, I was with D Troop, 1st Squadron, 4th Cavalry, which is the aviation troop of the 4th Cavalry, and we're attached to the 1st Infantry Division. D Troop did all of the aerial reconnaissance for the quarter cav and for the 1st Infantry Division. So one morning, we're in formation, and they called all the people that were going to go to the 1st Infantry Division, which I was kind of happy about because I'd seen the movie The Big Red One and stuff, and the 1st Infantry Division had a reputation, and I thought, well, this is okay, we'll see what happens. And I went to the division base camp at a place called Zion, and then was there for a couple days, and then got orders to go to D Troop Quarter Cav up in a place called Lai K. So my first few weeks I was there, I worked in the maintenance department, just working on helicopters, and late '67 they asked me if I wanted to be a crew chief on gunships. A crew chief basically is assigned a helicopter and keeps it flying, does all the maintenance on it, all the daily maintenance, making sure that things don't fall off, and the oil levels are up, the transmission is good, up, and just your everyday routine maintenance. So about a week after I was assigned to the gunship platoon, a place up along the Cambodian border. Anyway, they got hit by a major ground attack, and we were called out to give them fire support. And this was like a couple months before the Tet Offensive in '68, and there was a whole series of battles along the border. I guess the North Vietnamese were thinking, well, we'll draw most of the forces away from like Saigon and Hue and all the larger cities which were going to hit during the Tet Offensive. So we went up there, and that was my first experience in combat, which is um, pretty crazy. Well, when you're up in the air and uh, doing support for the infantry or whatever, um, you turn into a door gunner. So as a crew chief, you sit on the left side of the helicopter with a M60 machine gun. And when I first got there, it was kind of interesting. We didn't mount the machine guns on any sort of a mount. We just had a strap attached to the frame of the helicopter and around the machine gun. You held it freehand and shot. Yeah, another kind of interesting thing about being the crew chief door gunner, you're on the left side of the helicopter. So if you held the machine gun upright, all the shell casings would go into the helicopter and occasionally down a pilot's back, which they were hot. So we held the crew chiefs held their machine guns upside down, so the shell casing would go out. Yeah, at that point I was flying with the lift platoon. I wasn't in gunships, and we got a urgent call from a long range reconnaissance platoon that was pinned down in a small wooded area surrounded by a flat kind of a savanna type of a area, and then triple canopy jungle on the other side of this open area. And that was maybe about 150 yards from where the long range reconnaissance patrol was. And we were asked our unit was asked for a volunteer crew to go and pull these guys out. So I was one of the guys who volunteered. I was the platoon sergeant, and my pilot was the platoon leader. So it was just natural that we would be the ones that would do it. And we had a flight of A-1E Sky Raiders, which are fixed-winged aircraft, come in just before us and hit the wood line with 20 millimeter machine gun fire, and I'm not sure what all else they used. And then there were 4 Cobra gunships that came in and kind of did a daisy chain, firing into the wood line as we came in. So we came in, touched down. We didn't totally touch down. We just kind of stayed about a foot or two off the ground, and the LRPs came running out, firing into the wood line as they were running, and jumped in. And the whole time we were going in, and while the LRPs were getting onto the helicopter, I was firing my machine gun, and we took off, and nobody got hurt. I kept firing behind me, just leading as far out as I could and shooting, and pretty well burned out the barrel on the machine gun. And I expended, I think, 1,500 rounds of ammo. We weren't on the ground more than a minute, and then during the approach you're shooting, and then when you exit you're shooting. So yeah, I mean, you see muzzle flashes in the wood line, and you just keep shooting at them. The only way you're gonna come out of it is if you don't. Oh, there's no place to hide in a helicopter anyway. So you just fire at whoever's firing at you. Well, I got there at the end of '67 and came home uh, towards the end of '69. So I did 2 tours over there, about 20 months altogether, actually. After the first tour, I came home for 30 days and spent time with the family uh, and then went back. And actually, it's kind of strange because I was kind of excited to go back because I was like I say, the platoon leader, the platoon sergeant of the lift platoon, and um, you kind of feel like you have to take care of the guys or help. So yeah, I went back and got right back into it. Well, I enjoyed the people a lot. Um, I wasn't on the ground much, as an infantry person, but the Vietnamese that I did deal with seemed, just like regular people. Um, One of our barbers was super concerned about his son being drafted, and not unlike anybody over here. And the country itself was just fantastically beautiful, I thought. Flying early morning, missions where you're watching the sun come up, and there's fog banks over the mountains and stuff, and yeah, it's just really, really beautiful. I wouldn't mind going back. You know, be interesting. It really wasn't that bad. You know, I came home and went to St. Cloud State for a year, um, which was a little strange because, of the experience of being in Vietnam for almost 2 years and then going to school with all these kids who were straight out of high school. I think so, yeah. I got a little involved with a group called the Vietnam Veterans Against the War. Um, there was a vet's house near the university campus, and we it was kind of a support group. We helped some guys who were having a hard time transitioning, and we also went to various churches and community functions and stuff to talk about the war and uh, why we thought we should get out of there. Um, Marched on the Capitol in St. Paul, and um, I know we were up on the steps of the Capitol, and there was somebody with a North Vietnamese flag protesting the war, and we took that down, because there's no reason for that. You don't have to support the enemy to be against the war. Um, then I left St. Cloud and got a job as in commercial art at the Fingerhut Corporation. And after a period of time there, sitting in a cubicle, that got a little, I guess, boring. So I quit that and wound up being partners in a leather shop on the West Bank in Minneapolis. And while there, I also learned silversmithing. Got married and moved out to the country with my wife. And I made my living full time as a silversmith for over 20 years. And at some point there, I decided it'd be nice to have some kind of retirement plan. And I got a job with the state of Minnesota as a corrections officer. And I'm now retired from that.
Leo, a peaceful man, met dinner after Vietnam, married her in 74 with Latvian love. Who could want for more? Found a cabin that needed care, fixed it up and soon they had a pair of little boys who'd run and play, and sweetness filled most every day.
It has been. It's been a real good life.